Welcome to the informational seminar on our PhD program at Choice, the Comparative Health Outcomes Policy and Economics Institute, the School of Pharmacy at the University of Washington in Seattle. I am Anirban Basu. I'm a professor of health economics and the director of the Choice Institute. I'm joined by my colleagues, Ms. Marina Gano, Dr. Josh Carlson, and one of our PhD students, Felipe. They're going to introduce themselves as they talk, but let's go forward with the slides. So today we're going to give brief introductions. I introduce myself. Other people are going to introduce themselves as they speak. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Choice Institute, and then I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Carlson, for the PhD program structure, followed by Ms. Cano talking about the application process, and then there'll be an open question and answer session after that. Next slide. Well, there's an introduction slide. Well, you all already know me. Josh, maybe you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Carlson. I'm a professor in the Choice Institute and the graduate program director. Most of my research is in the area of economic analysis, and I've been on faculty now for about 13 years. Marina?
Hi, hi everyone. I'm Marina Gano. I'm the graduate program manager for the Choice Institute. I have been here for almost 5 years, so I'm kind of your point person from admissions through graduation. And I've been emailing with a lot of you, so it's glad to see you here and hope you learned something from this session. Felipe?
Thanks, Marina. Hi, everyone. I'm a third-year PhD student at Choice. I'll be part of the admissions committee, so please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Next slide. So you might already know Choice Institute is one of the premier hub of health economics and outcomes research in the United States, and certainly at the University of Washington in Seattle. This is our kind of mission statement, being the global leader in generating knowledge to improve individual and population health. Next slide. We have three missions. Obviously, our first mission is research, developing innovative methods, generating actionable evidence on a variety of aspects of healthcare in the United States and abroad. Our second mission is training, to train the next generation of scientists in health economics and outcomes research. Our PhD program has a big alumni network, and also quite coveted in terms of training in HEOR. We also have a master's program on the side that we are not going to talk about today. And then the last mission is service, really extending service to policymakers about helping them making legislative or other policy decisions in the context of health economics. Next slide. So our institute sits within the School of Pharmacy. Here is the core faculty for our institute. As you can see, there's a nice distribution of the different tiers and the seniority of faculty at the institute. It's also one of the unique places where you see an amalgamation of health economists, statisticians, decision scientists, all sitting together in the same place, which kind of reflects the interdisciplinary nature of HEOR. Next slide. Besides our core faculty, who all have primary appointments in the School of Pharmacy, we have a vast network of adjunct and affiliate faculty. Adjunct faculty are those who are in other departments of the University of Washington, but who are engaged with us, and the affiliate faculty who sits outside the University of Washington. And these are not just adjunct or affiliate faculty by name. They can only retain this title if they continue to engage with us, either through mentoring our students, giving seminars, and being participating in various activities of the institute. Here's our terrific staff. We wouldn't do anything without them. Leona De La Torre is our online certificate program manager who manages some of our online certificate programs in HEOR. You just met Ms. Cano. Greg Bizauskas is our senior research scientist, has been collaborating with us on a variety of scientific projects. And more recently, Linda Liu is a research scientist who has joined us, and she's also going to help us on various research projects. Next slide. Here are some of the examples of our PhD students going to their career, where they go. Typically, historically, our PhD students graduate and 1/3 end up in academia, 1/3 goes to industry, and 1/3 goes to other research organization. Here are some of our selected alumni from various years and where they ended up, and you can take a look at it. Yeah, so I'll pause for a few seconds so you can take a look at it and go from there. Okay. Next slide. Here is a distribution of our current students, and they come from various backgrounds, and Dr. Kalchan is going to talk about the various requirements that we look for our program admissions, but these have all come from at least demonstrating not only good academic record but leadership and some research experience, and they are and I think the last row is our first year students who we came in last year. Here are three of our recent graduates, and who I think they graduated all this year. One interesting thing about the dissertation that these graduates did, if you see, Ellen Chain's dissertation was very statistics oriented. She looked at evaluating heterogeneity in treatment effects and economic value of tumor agnostic drugs. She did a lot of Bayesian meta-analysis and all the other statistical analysis. Sabra Zara's dissertation was Health and Economic Burden of Substandard and Falsified Medicine. It was quite epidemiology focused. It also had a decision modeling component, and so that was different from Ellen's dissertation. And Samantha Clark's dissertation investigating the effects of Gleevec list price and adherence and outcomes in Medicare patients with CML is really a health economics dissertation. So she used a lot of econometric methods to look at causal inference on policy effects. So as you can see, the dissertation spans quite a broad area of research methods and topics that also you get trained for throughout your curriculum. Next slide. Here are the three broad areas of focus at the institute. It includes health economics, outcomes research, and policy evaluation. And here are some examples of both the theory and the methods that we focus on, and the broad kind of range of applications that we apply these methods to. Okay, next slide. One of the big uh, uh, stress of our institute is around our commitment to diversity. We not only have an endowed graduate fellowship, a diversity award to really help recruit students from very diverse backgrounds, but also we have a mission statement or a choice statement on diversity, equity, inclusion. We use the statement. We read out the statement in front of the beginning of any decision making that we do with the institute. For example, hiring new faculty, getting some new symposium going. So we understand our decision making reflects these principles, and again, our commitment to inclusion diversity is quite strong and going forward, and we take pride in that. Students would also have access to a variety of in-house databases besides all the publicly available surveys and data. We have the proven market scan data, and also the HRS linked Medicare databases. And more recently, we have had collaborations, and we got a contract with Promoter Health to get their data, which is a large claims database, both open and closed, to access health economics and claims data. So these are available to students for their dissertation if they would like to use it. Next slide. You can read a lot about all the research and the people and all the activities going on at the Choice Institute in our annual report that came out later last month. This is the link, and I'm sure, I don't know if students, if they have the access to these slides, but you could go to our website, and if you click on who we are, you would have access to these annual reports.
Yeah, we'll share the slides after this, so you can access that link.
Thank you, Mary. All right. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Carlson for the PhD program structure, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end.
Great. Thanks, Anirban. Thanks for that overview. So I'm going to talk about the structure of the PhD program. If there are clarifying questions, you can perhaps put them in the chat. Otherwise, you can hold them and we'll have a Q&A at the end. Go ahead. So just by way of an overview, basically our goal is to create independent scientists and leaders in health economics. And so independent scientists essentially are capable of generating good research ideas. So a lot of it has to do with the process of doing good science. We try and emphasize, again, we don't really give PhD students their dissertations or the projects that they're going to do. We work with them to think about what their interests are, what the methods are available to them, and really leave it to them to come up with their own research ideas, and then go through the process of figuring out whether that research idea, if it's good, is it a testable research question that you're able to develop, et cetera. So it really is a whole process through the PhD program to make it so that you're able to do all the aspects of doing good research, from the genesis of the idea all the way through to completion and presentation of the materials. Currently, we have 19 PhD students and 12 master's students. Half of those master's students are in the second year of their fellowships, and so they are on site with companies. So we have basically 6 master's students that are part of our program on campus every year, more or less. And you can see we often have retreats and things where we all get together as a group, and we do try and foster a really collaborative culture with lots of support, both amongst the graduate students, but also between the faculty and the students themselves. Next slide. So there are a number of fields of study that sort of fall under the HEOR field in our institute. These are health economics, decision scientists, biostats, epidemiology, clinical trial design analysis, and health policy. The dissertations that people do fall in some or multiple of these buckets. It is really a pretty wide open in terms of the topics that people want to select and the methods that they want to use to analyze their research questions. And we have faculty that fall in many of these buckets. And essentially, there's a process through sort of the initial part of the program whereby students get to know the faculty, and they work towards finding the right advisor and committee to support them through their dissertation. Next slide. So the curriculum itself has 4 key components. There's a set of core courses. Those are the courses that everyone has to complete. There is a process for waiving it if you have a really analogous course to some of what's been taught, and we can get into that later. But essentially, there's a core set of courses that provide the base set of knowledge. There are requirements for completing electives that allows you to customize your curriculum to specific areas that might be more of interest. If you're particularly interested in infectious disease, you may take a couple electives that focus on that specific topic, for example. We leverage, there are some electives that we provide. There are also many electives that are in the larger health sciences group. We have a very strong health sciences curriculum across schools of public health, schools of medicine, et cetera, that are available and accessible to our students. We have seminars. We have 2 seminars. One is our weekly graduate program seminar that everyone is expected to attend that seminar. And it is where we get together in person every week. We see basically research presentations by faculty, by affiliated faculty, by other researchers around Seattle, around the world even. It's also a forum for students to present their own work. So we really think that's very important for students to be able to present their research at various stages along the way, whether it's a work in progress, and get constructive feedback on their projects and how they're doing. If you're going to be giving a talk at a conference, we always encourage you to try and schedule some time at seminar to do your talk and get that first round out of your system and work from there. There is also a requirement to do some independent research. So those are credits that you will work and earn through collaborating with an individual faculty member on a project that is of interest to you and of interest to the faculty member. All of that work and the work above culminates in the preparation of a dissertation. Basically, after about the second year, students are transitioning to the dissertation phase. That's when you're beginning to try and develop your short proposal, a long proposal. You defend that proposal, and then you ultimately do the work and defend your dissertation. So that is a large snapshot of the 4 key components. Next slide. So here is a little bit more detailed look at the core program. Essentially, this is covering areas of biostatistics, epidemiology, economic evaluation, and some health services methods, causal inference, and dealing with large databases. So this comprises the core components, and the minimum credits there are 118. You can see the electives are included down there, as well as independent study and their dissertation credits as well. Okay. So I spoke a little bit about this, but this is what the progression to the doctoral degree looks like. The first and second years, you're going to be completing the core courses and your preliminary examinations. We have a set of 4 preliminary examinations. Those are exams that you can complete after your first or second year, well, typically and second year. You can do some each year that test you on the core knowledge of the program. So that is testing you on the field, your knowledge of the field itself. Summer quarter after second year, again, you're going to be moving towards the dissertation topics and doing some feasibility work on your research question. The third year, you're going to be completing or comprising your committee. You're establishing your supervisory committee and selecting your dissertation topic. And you're moving towards your dissertation proposal defense. Now, this is an oral and a written exam that is testing whether or not you have the skills to do the research, the dissertation that you have proposed. So it's, again, focusing on what you're proposing to do in your dissertation and ensuring that you have the skills and that the dissertation is feasible and is a good topic. After that, you're going to be working on the dissertation itself. And when you culminate all of that work, you're going to be doing your dissertation defense. That is essentially looking back on your dissertation and speaking about what you've done over the course of your dissertation work. So that is the full program there. So we do get a number of questions. We're going to address some up front, and then any remaining questions, obviously, we can handle later. So funding, we always get questions about funding. So the way that we do funding here is that your first 2 years are guaranteed. And after that, the responsibility shifts to the students, but our student body are basically 100% funded their entire time here. Really, this is about transitioning the responsibility for your funding to you. And this is part of our process towards, again, creating independent scientists. When you're an independent scientist, if you're, for example, in academia, you have to go out and get your own funding. So we want people to experience that search process, attempting to get funding, but we work closely with students to be able to do so. We make students available, aware of all the various RA positions and TA positions that we have. Again, but it's more of shifting that responsibility as an intentional part of our program. The specific appointments are going to vary, but a core appointment is basically 50% time as part of a fellowship, research assistantship, or teaching assistantship. The stipends are approximately $2,800 per month. They can vary a little bit depending on sort of which department, if you're getting what type of RA you're having, etc. But that's the expectation there. It is possible to supplement this with other work, either in the UW or the external. But we always ask that you are discussing this with your advisor before doing so to make sure that it's the right balance between what your ongoing workload is, making progress in the program itself, and sort of also meeting your needs. So we always encourage a discussion that happens there. There are some constraints around the amount of time that can be spent on UW specific work. And so again, that you're going to be talking with your advisor about. This package also includes health insurance, and so obviously that's a key component of it. You can waive required courses, but basically you have to demonstrate that you have sort of completed an analogous course of study. And what that typically entails is submitting the syllabus from the course that is analogous to the one you're trying to waive. And then the faculty members who have expertise in that field will evaluate whether or not that seems like it's sufficient overlap. Sometimes we just encourage you to take these courses again. We have excellent courses here, and there's often a lot more to be learned on a specific topic, even if the courses may be pretty analogous. Honorbond spoke to this already, but there's about our graduates go about a third to academia, industry, and government or nonprofit organizations. And I see a question right here. So are there a minimum number of elective credits that students are required to complete? And the answer is yes. Marina was right on that. And that the details of that will be provided both here, but there's also, we have a student handbook that's going to detail all of the fine details of the requirements. So that's the frequently asked questions. We can move on. So that's it for now. I'm going to turn it over to Marina to talk more about the application process. And then again, we'll have an open Q&A at the end for any remaining questions. Marina?
Okay, thanks, Josh. So I'm going to go over some points of the application process as well as our timeline. So I hope you are all aware that our deadline is December 15th. So that's 11:59 p.m. Pacific time on December 15th. Ideally, all application materials should be received by this date. We know sometimes, you've submitted and you're just waiting on that one letter of recommendation. If that's the case, definitely reach out to me and make me aware of that. Some things are not always in your control. After December 15th, our admission committee, we assemble and assign out applications to review. Each application is reviewed by 2 members of the admission committee, and we will give a notification for kind of the initial round of interviews in mid-January. And then the interviews occur in late January. And we've been doing these interviews online, kind of like a virtual visit day. And then the offer notification will go out mid-February. And this past year, we tried it for the first time where we fly out all admitted students in March to kind of show them the campus, attend seminar, kind of get a feel for Seattle and our program. And we found that was really successful this year. So I think we'll be doing that again, kind of to help you inform your decision in whether or not this is the right program for you. And after offers go out, you have until April 15th to let us know if you'll be coming, and that's a national date tied to funding packages so that no students are feeling pressured to accept earlier than April 15th. But certainly folks can let us know earlier than that if they're sure that they want to come to UW. And then we are on a quarter system, so our program starts a lot later than some other schools. So the fall quarter begins at the end of September and goes through mid-June. So we have 4 quarters as opposed to 2 semesters. As far as prerequisites, typically our students that are competitive would be coming in with a master's degree in fields such as epidemiology, econ, statistics, or public health. Definitely not all-inclusive list. So we have many strong candidates that have degrees in other fields, but typically we get a lot of applicants from these fields. We also see many applicants with professional degrees in pharmacy, medicine, or other health-related fields, such as nursing, who have strong quantitative skills. So that's a really important aspect of our program. Our faculty are leading experts in methods in the field of HEOR, so we do tend to attract and admit students that are have strong quantitative skills. As for other prerequisites, the UW Graduate School has a minimum grade point average requirement, and that's on a 4-point scale of a 3.0. So we do adhere to that. A more competitive applicant would likely have a GPA of a 3.5 or above. And this GPA is looking at your last 2 years of study. So that is what we are calculating. So for example, if you maybe have a lower GPA from, when you were an undergrad, that wouldn't necessarily impact your review. One thing that's very important to note, and I know we've already received a lot of questions about, we re-implemented the GRE. We've always required the GRE, but we put it on a pause for a few years during the pandemic, which many schools did due to challenges with gaining access to test centers, et cetera. But we've found that it is another useful data point in reviewing applicants. So we don't use cutoff scores or anything like that. It's just one other data point in getting to know an applicant and reviewing their application. So GRE scores all are required for everyone, and we're not granting waivers for the GRE.
There's a question about how recent the GRE needs to be. I think it needs to be within the last 5 years, and that's
because ETS, they expire after 5 years. So yeah. 5 years. Okay, and then we get questions a lot too regarding English proficiency. The university will ask you on the application, is English your native language? So any non-native English speakers, you're required to demonstrate English proficiency. And there's a policy from the graduate school, which is linked here when you get the slides, you can go to it. There are many ways to demonstrate English proficiency. One common way is by submitting test scores such as the TOEFL or the IELTS, and of which we have a slightly higher minimum score than the graduate school. So our minimum TOEFL score is a 100 for IBT, and our minimum IELTS is a 7.5. However, if you have a degree from a US institution, for example, then that satisfies for the requirement. Also, there's a list of English-speaking countries where if you have a degree from an English-speaking country, then that would satisfy the requirement as well. So if this bullet point applies to you, I would encourage you to review this graduate school policy 3.2 It used to be called Memo 8, but they renumbered it, so I believe it's policy 3.2. Yeah, so check that out, and please email me if you have any questions, because it can be pretty nuanced based on each applicant. Here are just some application tips that we've compiled. Really important. You should, if you're applying for this year, you should contact your recommenders. You should have already done that by now. I would recommend, just because they're very busy people. And so contact them early. It's helpful to include kind of like a cheat sheet about yourself, as well as information about the program that you're applying to that can help recommenders in drafting their letters. And so the recommenders, they will be prompted to submit a letter as well as a grid ranking on various categories. And as soon as you designate a recommender in the online application, it will send them an email prompting them to fill out the request. So that's another reason why you should contact them early, because I could imagine that might be a little confusing if you haven't let them know and then they get this email. So just a heads up about that. Submit a strong, focused, and well-edited CV. We've seen all sorts of CVs from our applicants, and you know, we can tell when you've really put work into honing them down and making them, you know, concise. Things to emphasize in your CV are your research skills, data analysis skills, any relevant rotations, electives, courses, presentations at conferences or seminars that you've given, as well as leadership experience. So we review applicants holistically, and we have a whole evaluation rubric of different realms, and they're all weighted equally. So leadership experience, you know, that's its own criteria that we evaluate on. So definitely all those aspects can be highlighted in your CV, and we want to know that about you. As well, any projects relevant to HEOR, which seems obvious, but sometimes people don't include it. So demonstrated interest in HEOR, that's one of our fields that we evaluate on. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind. As well as any publications that you've contributed to, even if not in press. Our admissions committee, they look up the publications that you put on your CV. So important to include those. For how to apply, the graduate school just launched a brand new application system called Slate, and it should be pretty seamless on your end. It's been a little bumpy on my end, as well as other programs at the university, but should be smooth sailing for you as applicants. So you'll apply online through the graduate school. You'll select, start graduate application. Make sure that you select that you're graduate, because there's several application types. I think graduate, non-matriculated, and visiting graduate students. So make sure you select graduate. And then this is our program. So it's listed under pharmacy, health economics, and outcomes research, PhD. And then, of course, the fall 2023 would be the year that you would select. Of note, we don't accept mailed application materials. If you send me anything, I will shred it. So just upload anything into your application itself. And one unique thing about the UW and their graduate admissions process, you don't need to submit official transcripts to our office or the graduate school unless you're offered admission. So during the application process, you'll just be uploading unofficial transcripts, just scanning and uploading them in the online application. There are fee waivers available. Unfortunately, international students are not eligible, which I wish was not the case, but it's determined by the graduate school. And I don't have any flexibility with that. So I know I've gotten a lot of questions about that. And sorry to all those that I have said no to. But so fee waiver requests, they must be submitted at least 7 days before the deadline. And the eligibility criteria is available here. It's based on the Washington State Need Grant Program. So there's a chart based on like how many people are in your household and what the minimum salary needs to be in order to qualify. Okay, so I guess that's all from me. We can open it up for Q&A. I've been seeing lots of messages coming through in the chat. So let's see.
Maybe we can get the slides out and so we can see each other better.
Oh, yeah.
So one question that I see here is a student or a prospective applicant mentioned that they have done their education in English, although it's not their first language, and whether or not they need to demonstrate English proficiency. And you do need to do that. If English is not your primary language, then or you're from a non-English speaking country like that, then you do have to go through the process of demonstrating English proficiency according to the memo that Marina showed.
But one of the ways to demonstrate if your school either on your transcript or sometimes like they can issue a medium of instruction document. If your program was in fact all in English, there's documentation that you can request to submit, and that satisfies the requirement. But I believe it has to be for your bachelor's degree only for that particular way to demonstrate.
Other question is, can we share previously done HEOR paper or thesis? Obviously, if it's published or presented as a poster in any conference, definitely include that in your CV, and we can look that up. But you're welcome to attach any kind of, in the appendix, anything that you have done which is not published, to get a full picture of your, what you have done and what your skills are.
Okay, you can also come off mute if you want to just ask your questions, but let's see, there's some more here. Can we share previously done HEOR papers or theses? Yes, please. Definitely include those in your materials. We want to see all your papers, thesis topics, etc.
If possible, though, it's great if you can just have a link to it on your CV rather than us adding pages and pages and pages to your application document to review.
Good point, Marina.
Anything else?
So practice, someone who's has wet lab experience and a PhD in pharmaceutics wanting to switch to HEOR and has a good quantitative background. How do you sort of facilitate making that transition? So it is a little bit more difficult to make transitions from other fields. Certainly the quantitative components would translate, and familiarity with sort of, the pharmaceutical or health sciences in general. The other areas, as we mentioned, that we look at are some research experiences and sort of a demonstrated interest in HEOR. So some other ways without, spending 3 years making that transition to demonstrate that would be going to conferences that are in HEOR, taking short courses, doing some of those types of activities, even if it's a small research project that has HEOR component. Again, doing some of the things to demonstrate your interest and some exposure to the concepts of HEOR and trying to get more familiar that way.
There's this question about how many applications we receive. I think we receive somewhere from 65 all the way to 100. It depends. It varies from year to year. We admit about 3 to 4 students every year. But yeah, I think that's one of the range. Marina can confirm.
Yeah, any other questions?
I'm looking at some of the pre-submitted questions that we received, so I thought I would just go through those. A lot of folks have asked whether we provide funding for international students, and the answer is yes. So the same funding packages are available to both US and international students. There's maybe some like training fellowships that international students would not be eligible for, like ones through like the NIH where they require US citizenship, but we still guarantee the same funding for international students.
Question about the minimum IELTS score of 7.5 versus the 7.0 that's shown on the website. And again, we have a higher bar than the minimum bar of the graduate school. So that's the difference there. So our requirement is 7.5. Can one jump from
Other question? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
In health economics and apply for a PhD? Yes, I mean, we have had some students who've transitioned from getting their PhD in the economics department here, for example, at the University of Washington, and joined our program because they did want to focus more on health economics versus traditional economics, things like that. So it is possible to make that transition. What is going to be clear, this is true for everyone, is we really are going to want to hear the story of why you're interested in HEOR, and why that in this case, why that switch might make sense. What was it that you weren't getting that you're wanting to get, rather than sort of flexing out of something that wasn't going well to something that you're hoping to, we really want to hear like the story of how that's a part of your professional progression. With the word remote,
Yeah.
what does the classroom experience look like? And so our classes are in person. So there is an in-person requirement. The most classes are offering more recording of lectures, Zoom options when you're ill, that sort of a thing, but they are not hybrid. It is mostly just kind of leveraging some of that technology infusion that happened as part of COVID into their course offerings moving forward to provide a little bit more flexibility moving forward. But our classes are in person. There is an in-person expectation, and that's how things are going there. Okay. Did that answer the question for you, Rain?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
I'll ask this one that was pre-submitted. We kind of touched on it, but it's like Anirban and Josh's take. What makes a competitive applicant?
Yeah, I can go first and then Anirban can go. But we did touch on this. So we are going to want to see a commitment to HEOR, so an interest in this field. We want to see a record of strong quantitative skills. We do want to see also some soft skills. We're one of those fields that really is often at the intersection between science and decision making. And so those audiences and those groups are different. And so we do need also to be able to communicate our work both in oral as well as written form. We do like to see a diverse range of interests and students. So speaking to how you're sort of unique and your trajectory is unique and what you can contribute to our program is always a way of differentiating yourself and something that we do try and emphasize. We also like to see forms of leadership and service. So if you've been contributing to the departments that you're in or the groups that you've been a part of, what are you doing in that way? Because again, we have a strong culture, and that culture is essentially created by us. It isn't something that happens externally. It's what happens from us. So we really try and bring in and cultivate that. And it's always wonderful and helpful to have our students be a large part driving our culture. Was a large part about also some other things are previous publications, previous research projects, maybe some coding experience, for example. Some of those things, not everybody has to check all these boxes, but these are often the things that we look for as sort of positives in terms of an application. Anirban, did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered everything. I mean, I would stress on the research part. I mean, whether it's through a degree program or experiential through working, we want to see that you have been exposed to research before joining a PhD program. We seldom admit people directly coming out of a bachelor's program.
How much weight does coding skills have in the application process? Yeah, not that much. You have time to develop those skills. So it really is going to be some other stuff. It's more of a sort of a positive that, in certain aspects, you may be able to hit the ground running more than others. But again, in a PhD program, it's a four-year plus program. People can develop those skills. In our master's program, people have to go a little bit faster, and it may be holds a little bit more weight there. But in this one, it's not something that that is a high part of what we would consider.
But if you demonstrate your coding skills in the context of some research,
sure,
and that certainly would be quite highly kind of looked after.
Are there any criteria for drafting your statement of purpose and your CV, like word limits, specific headlines? I think there are some on the statement of purpose. I think it's 1 or 2 pages. I can't remember. But yeah, 2 pages. Thank you. The CV, I would probably keep it about 5 pages, something like that. I think that's pretty typical. But there's not too many specifics on the CVs. What we're hoping to see there are just your prior experiences. So not too much on that.
I think the SOP should really reflect your passion about why you want to do a PhD in HEOR. So your knowledge about the field should come through in that statement of purpose. Because you are devoting quite a bit of time and of your life in the next 5 years doing a PhD in this. So we want to make sure that that you are sure that you want to do this. So that should reflect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Marina,
there's also an opportunity to submit an optional personal history statement. We've also referred to it as a diversity statement, and that is an opportunity to share maybe a little bit about yourself that is more personal, about your family, educational, cultural, economic background that has influenced your development, interests, career plans, and goals. So it's not an academic statement of purpose, but an opportunity to kind of reflect on your intellectual growth and development. So we learn a lot about our applicants from the inclusion of that personal history statement. So it's not required, but it is a nice kind of complement to the application packet.
So for research not yet published, so what I would suggest is that in your CV or somewhere you have ongoing research. So you can describe it, at least so we're aware of that's going on. And then the interview process, you're going to have the opportunity to talk to us about it. We're not going to want to sort of have track. Again, we don't go out and get all of your papers for every CV that we look for. But as part of the interview process, when we're evaluating individual students, we will dive in deeper. And as part of the interview process, we always ask about research interests and things that you're doing, and that will be an opportunity to speak to that research. And if we have specific questions, we can go through them in that context. Okay, how relevant is the research project execution exposure from the corporate world against academic research project? Real world research that goes on in an industry or corporate setting is definitely of interest. It doesn't have to be from the academic setting. We do realize there may be some constraints around what you can talk about versus perhaps some of the stuff that you might be able to talk about in an academic setting. Nonetheless, we would, you certainly be able to characterize the type of research that you were doing and the methods that you used without getting to specifics of products or specific results from that. But certainly would fall within the research category and would be a positive in that regard. if you're already in ongoing research, can you use this word for a PhD dissertation? The answer is maybe. So again, the PhD component is going to be coming, around a couple years later, typically, we do want you to go through the process of coming up with your own research questions, and so just doing work alongside a clinical trial that is already, the protocol's already developed, and it's really about, just being part of that research team and completing that work would not necessarily constitute a dissertation. However, you may be able to leverage that that clinical trial and all the data that's coming out of it to develop an interesting research question that you can then go ahead and do and for your dissertation. And so that's the way that those would work together. Certainly those relationships are going to be a positive, and that type of experience would be a positive to your overall progression through the PhD.
There was a pre-submitted question that I think folks might be interested in. For letters of reference, what is the general guidance for whom these should be from, especially if I haven't been in school for a while?
Yeah, so typically what we look for are letters of reference from some recent experiences. So those can be your bosses or colleagues or people with whom you've worked over the past couple of years. But it's also nice to get perhaps your last primary academic contact from from your last degree. That gives us a diversity of opinions about the sort of how you might do in that setting. You wouldn't need all of them from that setting necessarily. So if you've been doing, in industry and, working in a research group or something for the past 3+ years, that's where most of your most relevant experience would come from. So it would probably be two from there and one from your previous academic career, something like that. Okay. Any other questions? Regarding supervisors, is the choice limited to only the Choice Institute staff? What is the eligibility criteria? Okay, so when you come in, you are assigned an academic advisor. That is someone who's Choice faculty. But that person is not your research advisor. We try and align interest for the most part, but really they're just there to help you kind of begin the program, make sure that you're choosing the right classes and that all of that is clear, and you're sort of aware of the processes and how to do that moving forward. After that, and moving towards your dissertation, there's a lot more freedom in choosing who your advisor is, or who your mentors, or who you're working with. It is theoretically possible to have a dissertation chair outside, but they do have to be affiliated with the Choice Institute, and there does have to be Choice Institute faculty on the committee. But it's pretty rare. We have a pretty robust faculty across a variety of the areas that are of interest to our students. So it is the dominant theme is that you would be working with someone from the Choice Institute, although it is theoretically possible to work with other folks.
We had a pre-submitted question that I wanted to share. Does it matter if the GRE scores are submitted from an at-home test versus an in-center test? And I didn't know the at-home test was a thing, but I just looked it up, and it is, and it's pretty much the same. You have a human proctoring you, and they're considered the same as taking them in a test center. So I would say yes, you can do either.
I would agree. If anybody feels that it's acceptable, then we'll take it. A question about summer internships. Yes, there are summer internships. We do encourage those, especially for folks who are thinking possibly of going into industry. We have a very strong connection with industry through what we have as a corporate advisory board. So we reach out to them and find the internships that they have throughout the year, and we make all of our students aware of those. and they can apply for them and go that route. Even if you're going a different route, it can be useful and interesting experience to go spend a summer doing an internship. Those are paid internships, fortunately, so that's useful. There are some that are in other local institutions as well. For example, PATH sometimes, which is a global health research institute here, often has internships. Limitations there is only one possible limitation on the summer one. I mean, certainly there's a timing related issue. Sometimes the timing is a little different between when they start and when we end, for example, but usually that's not an issue. If you have the T32 fellowship, there are a couple guardrails around what you can and can't do in terms of your time there. But again, we work with students to try and find the best way forward when that time comes. There are a lot of advantages to the T32 as well. So a little bit of a pro and con on that one.
Just to follow up on that, I mean, for international students, obviously you have to use your CPT to do the internship over the summer. You can also use your CPT to continue working outside the campus for a limited number of hours with your CPT. And our degree is one of the science degree, which gives you about 3 years of OPT after you graduate. So just so you know.
Question here about part-time work. So it is possible to do some part-time work, but we are a full-time PhD program, and really the focus and emphasis needs to be here. Typically, students, by the time they're maybe the third year, are doing some part-time work. But we did mention that briefly. It is possible to do some outside work. You're going to want to balance that with the progress through the program, and talk to your advisor about how to appropriately balance that and prioritize, exams and studies and stuff like that with part-time work. So it's not excluded from your option. Okay, I think we are at time. So this was an excellent set of Q&A. You can certainly follow up with any additional questions that you might have. And we look forward to seeing your applications. Good luck.
Good luck.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.